Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Graham Lavender, and I am bibliothécaire en relations industrielles et sciences économiques à l'Université de Montréal. And I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers today. So, Robynne Devine is Senior Project Manager at BCcampus, and Dr. Elizabeth Childs is Professor and Program Head for the Master of Arts in Learning and Technology at Royal Roads University. They'll be telling us about the very exciting Open GenAI project. The presentation will be in English, and as always, we welcome questions and comments in both English and French. Alors, n'hésitez pas à poser vos questions dans la langue de votre choix. I would also like to invite you to contribute to our collaborative note-taking document. You'll find the link in the chat. Le lien vers notre document de note collaborative sera dans le clavardage. So without further ado, I will hand things over to our presenters.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to see everyone today. So this is a presentation around the Open GenAI project. This is funded by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. And it'll be Elizabeth Childs and I that will be kind of sharing some information today about the project. Let me just go to the next slide. Great, thanks. So my name is Robynne Devine. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Senior Project Manager at BCcampus. I am joining today from Ucluelet, which is located on the west coast of Vancouver Island. I am normally live and work in the unceded territory of the Algonquin-speaking people. No one today is called BC, but I am fortunate enough to be on the West Coast, which also could mean that my Wi-Fi could be a little bit sketchy, but hopefully I have no problems. But just a little bit more about BCcampus. So for anyone who doesn't know what BCcampus is, we're an organization that's kind of positioned in the province of BC to support the BC post-secondary system. So we do that in a variety of ways, and we do that through funding from both the provincial government as well as the project today, which is funded by the Hewlett Foundation. But we basically work within the system. Primarily, big part of our work, of course, is open education, which we are known nationally and even globally for the work that we do around open education, as well as professional development with learning and teaching. So we have a learning and teaching program that puts out a bunch of professional development. And I see Elizabeth has put the link in the chat. And then projects. So that's kind of what brings us here today is we quite often get special funding to do very specific work, which brings us here today. So I'm happy to take more questions about our organization later if you have any, and I'll hand it over to Elizabeth.
Welcome. Thank you, Robynne. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your day to join into this session, and for Graham for inviting us to be part of it. I have to tell you, it just warms my heart to hear the en français. On the west coast of Canada, it is not our day-to-day, and so it was, yeah, thank you. Thank you for having it be your day-to-day and sharing it with us. I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Algonquin-speaking people, in English known as Victoria. So I'm actually out in Colwood today on our campus, and I've got all kinds of lighting behind me because I was saying to Graham earlier, it's we're going to have a storm here shortly, so it's getting nice and dark and gray. But I actually am from, for some of you, depending on how far east we are across the country, I grew up and was called home, raised by a lake in Anishinaabe territory, Buckhorn Lake, across from Curve Lake First Nation, which is 2 hours northeast of Toronto, and have progressively moved myself west across our country. I don't think I can get any further west except where Robynne is right now. And my work has been at that intersection point of online blended learning, technology-enabled learning before the pandemic found that space, and open. And growing up in a very small town is what first actually led me to the open call of equity and access. And so it's been really interesting to be able to be part of the open community and learn every day I'm learning more. The programs under my watch at Royal Roads are a Master's in Learning and Technology program and suite of programs, certificates and diplomas that are designed with openness as a design principle. And I'll put the link in the chat in case you're interested in taking a look to see how we've taken that up in some of the graduate programming we offer. But this particular project, as I was saying earlier, you're getting fresh content. It's the first time that Robynne and I have actually done this presentation. So we are open to questions, comments. I love the collaborative notes document and might have to peek in there later. So please don't hesitate to ask questions as we go or at the end as well. Robynne, I'll turn it back over to you for the beginning part.
Awesome, thank you. Go to the next slide. Awesome. All right, so just a little high-level project overview. As I mentioned, it is funded through the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. So the project started in April of 2025, and we actually have 3 years to do this work, which is amazing. So we'll wrap it up in the end of March of 2028. So on the project team, there are other folks in the background that do support this work, but myself as the senior project manager, I am project managing it, and Elizabeth brings in her expertise. And then Harper, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, there's actually a press book update. So he's a very busy guy right now. So but he does a lot of the technical support. And he actually has done quite a bit of research for us too around some Open GenAI tools. So he's a big part of this project. We'll go to the next slide. Great. So kind of the two main goals of this project, and we'll get to it in a few different ways, but one is to build capacity in the BC post-secondary system for educators to develop skills and competencies and ethical ways to work with AI in both teaching and learning and open. And then the other one that we're really kind of digging into right now, which has been super fun, is to create a functional student AI tutor chatbot, which we call Upturna, and we actually don't use the word tutor per se. We're using AI study companion. But this will work to support within the open textbook collection, which we'll talk a bit more about how that works. So it's been really fun, and we'll be doing a lot of focus groups and testing in year 2, which I'll kind of go over the timelines in a bit more detail. But yeah, that's kind of the two main goals of this work. Go to the next slide. So here's kind of a timeline, and this is a flexible timeline. I think that this is ideally how this will go, but I think that to be determined. But so right now we are in development on the AI study companion. And then from that, we'll go into testing for a year to year and a half. And in the meantime, throughout all of that, we will be doing some research, which Elizabeth is going to talk a bit more about in a little bit. So that research will run pretty much the full span of this project. And then in 2026 and 2027, we'll focus on delivering some workshops, webinars around building kind of some skills and knowledge around Open GenAI and GenAI in general. And then we'll wrap up at the end of March in 2028. And next slide. And I'm going to hand it over to Elizabeth.
Thanks, Robynne. So one of the things that I was asked to do was speak a little bit about the open principles that are informing this work, and recognizing we're right at the beginning. And so we're trying to both weave these in and model the work as well as do the work. So of course, there's the 5 permission characteristics of OER use that we're working to weave into this project. But where I really landed, and I'm going to just post this link in the chat in case you haven't seen it. UBC and their Center for Teaching is doing some incredible work around open with faculty development as the lens. And so they've pulled in, that's where this reference is from, this notion of open pedagogy. And when I was reading this, I was thinking, yeah, this is where we're going with this, right? So with respect to open planning, it's collaboration that's accessible. And that's one of the things for this project that we've really been working on is getting out to student groups, getting out to faculty groups, working with UBC and talking about with them about how are we going to plan this project forward in a very transparent way. And we'll talk a bit more about that. The other piece around open products is, okay, so what are we using for this study companion? And we're using the BC Campus Open Textbook Collection, the Open Educational Resource Collection, ancillary resources that are open, and they're all Creative Commons licensed. So that's sort of the nest that this project sits in. Around open reflection, this is where the research leans in. And so we are working right now, we're just going through our REB here at Royal Roads to have a parallel research project that will go along the time duration of this project to be able to share out lessons learned along the way. So this is a space many people are getting into. The Open GenAI space is a space that lots of people would like to know, how did you do it? And so having the research project allows us to both continue that desire to be open and transparent, but also to have the reflection ability built in to this sort of design thinking approach that's being taken. And then the open process is being able to share how this is done, both how the tool or the study companion is developed, but also that's one thing, right? So the student audience is one. The faculty and socializing this and getting uptake and use is a completely different thing. And that's also where we need to really have these processes built into play. Could I have the next slide, please? So then I, decided to go down the rabbit hole just a little bit more and looked back to Haggerty's attributes of open pedagogy from 2015, so a while ago now, and tried to align. I mean, this work is more around building courses. And what I tried to do is align these attributes with what we're trying to do to give a bit of a scaffold and a framework for it. So what is created with the study companion will be available on GitHub. People will be able to use it, modify it, adapt it, and use the code. We're also, with both the student design conversations and faculty design conversations, the intention is to have, similar to what you have here, right, a collaborative notes document, something that's living, something that people can go in and out of over time, over the duration of the project time. When we talk about people and openness and trust, one of the things that has been very identified very early on was issues around privacy and ethical use, both on the student and faculty side, and an environmental piece as well. So really trying to feed in some of those values and belief sets into the statement of work for the creation of the study companion, but also into how we approach working with the prototype and asking for feedback and changes and those sorts of things. So this is where I might be bending it a little bit, but innovation and creativity in the online course world, you could go off in all many directions. With respect to this project, one of the things that was also it could have been a no-go actually, decision point was around this notion of what will this interface do? And it was very clear there was not the intention to just give student answers. It was much more of a Socratic dialogical chat interface so that there would be continual prompts and a bit of a pedagogy behind that that enabled students to dig deeper, to have agency, to take ownership, but also to see that, oh, well, I need to actually go a little bit further here, as opposed to, oh, could you just tell me the answer? So that's one of the things that in working with the prototype development, when you have all these different worlds colliding, right? That's where the translation has to happen. Okay, how do we actually do that? And what is everyone's common understanding about what that means? One of the other features that will be part of this study companion is this notion of student choice. So in sharing ideas and resources, there will be multiple modes and ways students can both engage with the study companion, but also choose their own forms of output, whether that ranges from multiple choice, an audio file. They will have the ultimate choice of how they would like to get in, create resources, and use them. And then the fifth attribute is one that I'm kind of excited about, is the connected community, because one of the features will allow both students and also faculty, if they've embedded this into their course, for example, to share. So to say they do a series of chat, search, and adult, it's very helpful to share that back with the larger community, to share not only the output, but also what they did to get there, in the hopes that it might be useful to someone else, that it could be modified, it could be remixed and used by others to get them down a path in these searches. Student agency I've mentioned already, and Socratic questioning, and then the peer review piece. Internally, it's that lovely sort of action research design, right? Where you're constantly iterating based on feedback and based on some of the design decisions you're making. And then we also have this research project where we really hope will help both dive deep into some of the questions of this work and how it could be shared with others, but also in talking about the work, prompt those opportunities for reflection. Could I have the next slide, please? So let's get into this thing. We would love to show you a wireframe or a starting point, but we're too early in the process to do that yet. There will be lots of opportunity to take a look at the prototype once it's ready to go. We'll take the next slide, please. Thank you. So to make this the thing, we're working with the Cloud Innovation Center at UBC, and that's a combination of instructor, student, and the Cloud Innovation Center work. So one of the exciting parts of it is that we do have actual real human students doing part of the work in this project. And having been in a presentation they were giving last week, sort of an update presentation, they are so excited and they're lovely and they've got a million neurons firing at 1,000 miles an hour. So we're really very grateful to be able to be working with the KIC Center for this project. As Robyn mentioned, the primary audience for the companion tool is students. Secondary audience is faculty, instructors, educators. And so as people take up or may already be using some of the open collection from BCcampus in their courses, this could be something they would also include as part of their courses. I mentioned the openly licensed part, and I gave you some hints in my table earlier about this notion of the interaction, really wanting it to be much more of a scaffold and build type approach as opposed to a let me just didactically tell you approach. Really focusing on the student agency in their own learning, which I think as we go forward, so next year when we get into working with faculty around both what is this thing, how might you use it in your work with students, what are some possibilities, what are some use cases, I think that's where there's a lot of room for us to talk about how do faculty support student agency in their learning in these types of ways. And then of course the community and networked learning that I mentioned. Next slide, please. Oh, this is so small, the font, sorry. So how do we know if we're going to be successful? Well, as Robyn mentioned, this project is really fascinating for me, in part because, yes, we had to define something, but we also had to define it in a way that was nimble enough to change, because this space is changing so fast and this project is 3 years long. So to think that we're going to fix something, like have a fixed set of deliverables and never iterate it again is ill-founded, in my opinion. So there's been a lot of thought given in the statement of work with creating the prototype around how do we iterate, how do we revise based on the feedback that we get, knowing that technology also is changing so quickly. So after the end of the prototype phase, so after year 3, we'll have been informed, the tool will be informed by multiple student and faculty design conversations. We have limited it right now, so the corpus that the LLM will be using is 25 openly licensed textbooks from the BCcampus collection. So Opterna will be able to store and access those. It'll have a user-friendly interface that's got UDL principles at the core. It will interact in a way that's Socratic and dialogic. and generate multiple outputs. So practice opportunities, the ability to return to foundational concepts, multiple choice tests, study cards, crosswords, FAQs. These were pulled from what students are doing now. We might find that next year, actually, students don't want any multiple choice tests. What they really want is whatever the next thing is, and that's really useful for their learning. Or faculty may have some ideas. So we've got some ability to be nimble in that space. The tool will be able to allow users, whatever type, student or faculty, to choose to explore the collection based on introductory, immediate, advanced, and then where you are in the post-secondary continuum. And also, as I mentioned, that notion of user-generated collection of prompts and outputs that'll be available for sharing. One of the stretch goals that we're hoping we get is allowing the tool will be able to source the BCcampus collection, the 25, and then actually be able to go beyond. So maybe go beyond into the larger collection a little bit, again, at those levels. So we've got this bit of a sliding scale of here's the foundational stuff we really need, we think, and here's some stretch goals if and as there's time, but also if and as the technology may change. Next slide, please. So we pulled up some FAQs in part from our conversations with all of these groups so far, and we thought they might be helpful as conversation points or as question thinking points for you. The first one, I won't read through all of them, but I will explain a little bit. So right now, they will be using just the BCcampus versions of the textbook, because often what happens is faculty take those textbooks or maybe assign their students to take parts of the textbook and remix them given their local context or local priorities. Right at this point, for the first 3 years, the database will not include any of those remixed books. It will just focus on the BCcampus version. Lots of people want to know how the tool is being trained, what's it being trained on, how is it being trained. So we are using an existing pre-trained language tool. So it's not really being trained, but what it is being pointed to is this textbook collection and a subset of the textbook collection so that they can access that and discuss those topics. Next slide, please. Student data. So this was, as you can imagine, many meetings worth of conversation. And where we've landed on it, in keeping with some of the values and principles and in thinking about open pedagogy, is the user data, whether student or faculty, will be anonymized. They'll have a number ID. The history is only used to reference future discussions with that numbered ID. And you also can delete the history at any point. So you have some agency over the tool or with the study companion itself. Next slide, please. This is always a good one. So how are you going to maintain this after? I get that one a lot with my online courses. So this is a good answer. It's still up for discussion. So we're working at BCcampus, and Robynne, you can jump into, are working around what the feasibility would be. Of course, they also need to see who's using it. How is it being used? Is it indeed useful? And so that's part of this conversation. And sort of the next year 2 and year 3 is really both getting out there and socializing the use of this, and then seeing what is the uptake. Is this a valuable piece? If it does seem to be valuable, then yes, there's possibility in the back end, in the technology side, to expand into a larger textbook collection. But again, we'll just wait and see how the usability data comes in. The prototype, we don't have an actual date. They're making amazing progress. So tentatively, we're saying January, but that is, stay tuned. We're giving them some wiggle room. Robynne, do you want to jump in at any point, or do you want to wait till the end of these months?
No, I think you've covered it. I guess I would just say, as far as the project goes, we're committed to the prototype and the testing, and whether or not we are able to host that long term, it will come down to the feasibility and things like that. So, but I think you're pretty clear about that.
Awesome. Thank you. Then we'll see what's on the next slide. I can only remember so many in this presentation, so now it's a little bit of an adventure. Oh, excellent. Okay. The research project. So as I mentioned, we put in ethics for this. We're waiting. It's usually fairly good turnaround here at Royal Roads, so I expect to hear soon. And really the impetus for this was there are enough people out there trying to do this that are behind a firewall, that are making internal decisions, that are walking this path, and we can't really learn from that. But in this space, especially with BC Campus's footprint globally as being a leader in the open space, it really made sense to consider, let's share what we're learning. It will be a case, right? It's a case study of doing this. And we're going to dive into what are some effective pedagogical principles when you're trying to integrate open source Gen AI tools, ethical considerations that we've come bumping up against, frameworks for building capacity to use these types of tools, because as you, I'm sure, are well aware, there's a range and continuum of level of comfort and expectations across our higher ed institutions in Canada, and particularly with faculty, about using Gen AI tools with their students. And so capturing this moment in time, but also capturing this project as what could be then a case study to look back on, we thought would be a valuable addition to the larger understanding of how you can go about this work in the open space. And so that's really where the focus of the project is. Data collection will take many forms. We will be doing a bit of that sort of autoethnography of our project team meetings. We'll also be doing design conversations with students, with faculty as we move out into their different spaces and venues. So for example, we're actually starting next week with a design conversation with faculty as part of an ETUG conference. We're doing one with the Digital Learning Strategies Forum later in November. And so we'll be doing more of that along the way. And that will frame the research project. I actually am hoping that, well, I'm hoping we get ethics by next week, but I'm also really hoping that we're able to do sort of that year at a glance and have these ongoing recap documents that then can be shared as the work in progress prior to any kind of final research project, paper, knowledge dissemination. So stay tuned and reach out if you would like to be involved. We'd love to have your voice and your input as well. And we'll skip to the next slide. Oh, well, there we go. That's the reach out slide. I will leave you with that so you can see the email addresses and maybe grab that. And I'm just distracted a bit by Isaac, your question in the chat. So maybe we can, Robynne, if you would like to jump on and say anything else, please do. And then we can open it up to conversation.